Hi, welcome to the channel. Welcome back if you're a current subscriber. Today I'm doing an analysis on Gypsy Rose on her most recent TikTok live stream. This is from a channel called Straight Out of Context. I'll try to leave a link in the description box below. So go check out this channel and let's get into it.
Oh, thank you. I had, when I was pregnant, I really couldn't keep up the blonde. The blonde was very high maintenance and very expensive to keep up with. I liked the blonde.
So right off the bat, what we see here is something that could be several things. In this instance, it's not any indication of deception, but you see some self-grooming behaviors. That's only because someone did bring up her hair, so it drew attention to her hair and she then started messing with her hair. You also saw her eyes go up and her then scrunching of features. As she says, it was very expensive. That just emphasizes and confirms that it might have been expensive. It wasn't something she wanted to continue to do, at least. That often indicates a level of contempt or disgust, disapproval, and dislike towards something. So from that, we could derive that she did, in fact, want to continue to be brunette and no longer blonde and keep up with that. And she didn't like keeping up with blonde, or that there was something around being blonde that she disapproved of and disliked.
Thank you, David. I liked the blonde. I had my fun with it. I said I lived in my Barbie era for a little while. And then I'm like, okay, it's getting a little expensive, and so went to the salon.
It's also, of course, a little difficult sometimes to determine what she's doing body language wise because of all of the things that TikTok comes with, all of the galaxies and dogs and bubblegum and fun things that people donate to have appear on the screen. But from what I can tell, when she says, I did like it, I had fun, her head tilts. Now, typically that's something we would do if we are uncertain of something, if we're curious about something, intrigued, interested, but not sure entirely, not confident in something. So when she says, I had my fun with it, there's more going on there, potentially, that she's really not all that sure that she did have that much fun with it. And there's even verbally what turns into a question, I had my fun with it. It almost turns into a question. There's a bit of a lilt there that can indicate deception, but in this case, I believe she's not fully confident in saying that she did have fun as a blonde.
What's my natural hair color? Brown. So, when I got out of prison, my hair was super long and it was all natural. Oh, thank you, Jay.
A few things I want to note here is when she says, when I got out of prison and her eye shaped that direction. No, that could, and in some context, indicates that she's being deceptive. It's shifty eyes. In this case, she looks down a little bit. This is just negative tonality, something she disapproves of and dislikes. And she mentions prison, so of course that makes sense in this context because prison, of course, was not a happy time for her when she got out of prison. So that part was true. She wasn't being deceptive in this case. But I also want you to note the tone change when she goes from thank you. She has that childlike tone that people pretty often say is her being manipulative, her trying to manipulate people. Her ex-husband has stated that this is her way of manipulating people when she has that childlike voice, versus right afterwards when she's talking about prison, her voice is a little more of what you see in her interviews. And so that change in tone there when she's getting money versus when she's not does pique the interest of some people who believe that this is because, of course, money is important to her. And historically, she has been a con artist, self-admitted. It's been filmed. That's been confirmed. She has participated in many scams and schemes. So this makes sense. But I do want you to note that tone change there. That just further confirms that for the people who are interested in when she's being manipulative versus when she's not. And you can see that a little bit here.
No, I didn't have a C-section. I had her natural with an epidural. Thank you, Samantha. Yeah, I made a red note. Everything is in.
Now you could see a conflict in two different sides of her. One part where she says, no, I didn't have a C-section. I had her naturally. It's not Gypsy's baseline, especially not in this video, to emphasize with her head bobbing. You don't see any illustrators. All of this could indicate deception. It is definitely different than her baseline. And it's pretty interesting when she's discussing the birth of her daughter. It seems that she's a bit contemptuous about this. There's definitely, again, negative tonality around discussion of her child. You see that with the vertical lines on the face, the vertical drooping features. A little bit there, it's very subtle. That along with the lack of illustrators, she just seems to be disapproving of at least discussing the birth of her child. She seems a bit snarky tone-wise, whereas what we would expect to see is someone, especially if they're a new mother, to be joyful and have a more positive tonality around discussing the birth of their child, this being what should be an exciting event. And that can be concerning for many people. It has been concerning for many people, noticing that she doesn't seem to have this bonds that you would typically expect of mothers. So either there's some distance there's some deception there, or she doesn't have a bond with her baby and there's potentially postpartum depression or something else going on there. Now, given she has gone out and done many things since the birth of her baby, allegedly since the birth of her baby, because the timeline is skewed there, it doesn't seem she has postpartum depression because that would cause her to want to do a lot less typically. So I believe it's one of the former things. It's deception, or that she just doesn't have this bond with her child that you would expect to see from a new mother.
I made a profile, but I don't know. I'll probably make it and then never touch it again.
But then you see right there a more positive tonality. Her eyes are wider. There's not a vertical line in her face. There's no indication that she is unhappy when she goes into talking about her profile in seemingly a more joyous manner than she does about her child.
I just ate it today, so. No, I'm not going to show her. No, I made a choice a long time ago that I wasn't going to show her on social media. It's to respect her privacy. We're trying to keep her as private as we possibly can.
So here gets interesting. You see more positive features, more positive tonality around this part of the discussion, and she is continuing to talk about her baby. At the same time, you also see some uncertainty, shrugging of shoulders, her head going this way and this way, all of this indicating not sure, I don't know, some uncertainty around this, a lack of confidence around this, her saying she doesn't plan on showing her child on social media. You see an eyebrow flash around social media because again, this does have some significance to her. You don't see that when she talks about her baby as much. But we are seeing a conflict here in what we saw prior to this, where you saw negative tonality and now it's a more positive tonality in this particular part when she's discussing her baby. Now, this doesn't indicate that there is or is not a bond there, but it does differ. And she's talking more about social media and that side of things. And I believe that's why we're seeing a bit more of a positive tonality there, because perhaps there's more of a negative context around her having a baby and giving birth. There's been, for example, a lot of controversy about it online. That might contribute to the negative tonality when she's discussing the birth of her baby. It could be a lack of a bond. It could be anything. I don't like to speak in absolutes and say for sure because I don't know, honestly. I'm not sure. But just based on what I'm seeing, there's negativity more around the birth of her baby, but then she's talking about her baby in the context of social media, and you're seeing a more positive tonality here. Now, social media is important to her, so this has a more positive meaning to her. And you're seeing that with the uplifting of features, the genuine smile, half laughter, just a more uplifting of features and tonality of things here.
You know, I said a long time ago, I'm not gonna try to be a mommy influencer. I'm not gonna try and post about her. That's just I'm a new mom. I'm protective of her. And there's just a lot of creeps out there. So it's just the best for her to keep her out of it. But I can tell you.
Then that bit makes sense. She starts talking about how there are creeps out there. There is that referential shift a bit there, some verbal distancing, but not so much that I think it's really alarming in any capacity. Just this bit does make sense. She's talking about, though, people who can be creepy online and especially towards children. You see the scrunching of features, again, that indicating there's some dislike, content, and disgust around that part in particular, and it makes sense because of what she's verbally talking about.
She is a beautiful baby girl. She is healthy. She has a head full of hair. She's so beautiful. I think she has my eyes. But can smile. That's like her little mouth looks like Ken a lot.
So a good bit of that was just a bit awkward, and this is a bit of a roller coaster of things because Gypsy's positive and negative tonality shift pretty frequently in this. And so again, now we're going back into the positive tonality of things. At the same time, when she says, I think she has my eyes, her head goes back. She's creating some bit of distance between her audience she's speaking to and herself. That's typically what someone might do if they know they shouldn't be saying something or they're not saying something they're confident about. We're seeing that there, that distance she has suddenly created between herself and her audience as she says, I think she has my eyes. Now, personally, I don't believe at this age that you could tell a baby's eye color. Gypsy has brown eyes. Babies typically have blue eyes up until a certain point. I believe that's 3 months. I don't know, I'm not a doctor, but I don't believe she would know the eye color of her baby. So she is being a bit deceptive there. And that's why you're seeing that distancing. Her brain literally saying, we shouldn't be doing this. We shouldn't be saying this. This is not true. And that, I believe, is what we're seeing in this part.
AI sexy.
Whose nose? I don't know yet. I don't know. She has a baby nose, so, I mean, I don't know yet. Just gonna have to grow into it for us to find out.
So again, you see that distance she creates when she says, I don't know yet. I don't know she has a baby nose. You see that distance she creates again between herself and her audience. And also at this point, it would be more likely for her to be able to tell what the baby's nose looks like versus its eyes. So I do believe she's being a bit deceptive in this part.
Continuing thanking you, Jimmy. Do I want more kids? Eventually. But I'm in no rush. I'm just taking care of the one that I have now.
You continue to see her physically distance herself every time she's discussing certain parts about being a mother and her daughter. That physical distance, I'm just taking care of the one I have now, even verbally creating distance there, which again is interesting and not what you'd expect to see from a mother. You do see her talk about this more positively now, as opposed to prior at the beginning of this TikTok live. Now I am skipping around a bit, but this is towards the end a bit. And now you're seeing a more positive tonality of things and an uplifting of features, her eyebrows going up, eyes widened, genuine smile. But she's physically creating a distance and verbally creating a distance between herself and her audience, and even herself and her child when she's talking about she's going to take care of the one she has, not I'm just taking care of my daughter, just things that you would expect to see. That doesn't necessarily mean she is for sure being deceptive. There's just a lack of several things that we would expect to see here, given she's a new mother and this should be a joyous occasion and that there should be some bond that we're not necessarily seeing.
Do I miss being pregnant? The first 2 trimesters were a breeze. Totally, I felt fine. The last trimester was rough. I had the heartburn, constipation. I kept going.
Now you're seeing some asymmetrical features there, and she puts her hand on her neck. That is typically something someone will do when they're feeling more guarded, less confident, and that with this cluster of things. One eyebrow raise indicating uncertainty, doubt, skepticism around the first trimester was fine, and then her eyes closed. She has eye blocking, which is shutting something out or remembering something. You see eye blocking with the eyebrow raise, but it's asymmetrical. It's indicating doubt, lack of confidence there. So there's something more going on here. Most likely she is being deceptive in this particular part.
I kept having prodromal labor contractions. And then they're towards the end. I was having on the real contractions. Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Warren.
Again, it's difficult to tell because of all the stuff that pops up on the screen, but we can at the very least see she's touching her face a lot. And again, this is all usually a lack of certainty and confidence in what she's saying, an indication she is being deceptive. The lack of blink rate and some eye blocking there, all tells me that something more is going on in this part. I'm going to end this here. It basically continues like this. There's nothing really that significant in the rest of this. I might do a part 2, depending on if there's interest in that, but really I don't believe there's a lot of other things in here that are really that significant. Please let me know your thoughts if you've watched this far. Please hit the like button. Please subscribe. Thank you.